What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Adam, back at you again. The hashtag rebound series. We are on day 103 of trying to put a life back together down here in Houston, Texas, after the craziest disaster I could have ever imagined. Well, I couldn't have even imagined it. It was that bad. If you're new to the channel, watch some videos. Go back in time. I don't got time to get into that because today is going to be a long video. I already know this before I start recording, that it's going to take a long time to get through all the notes that I wrote down for today over the last, 4 or 5 days that I've been thinking about this and putting things down that come up in my mind. And I was taking some rest and relaxation time over the Christmas holiday. Christmas was actually rebound day 100. Ironically, and it's kind of funny because a lot of these magical number coincidences show up all the time. When I talked about being in federal prison, I was in federal prison exactly 600 days. Exactly 600 days. Not 601, not 599. And I was supposed to go home on April 1st, but in the case of the worst April Fool's prank ever pulled on somebody, a couple hours after they told me that I'd pack my bags and go home, they told me I had to stay in prison one more day because they couldn't supposedly book my transportation to get home. And so, 600 days. But yeah, day 100 was Christmas, and I'm just, Christmas, I'm not gonna lie, Christmas sucked this year. And, I don't got, that's not a rip on anybody. No rip on my friends. It's not a rip on anybody. It's a fact. Life has been complete hell this year in every way, shape, and form imaginable. And Christmas it sucked. And Christmas sometimes is a terrible time for some people. I had a lot of days off in a row. But there were a number of those days that started out strong. But then I ended up in like this action paralysis. And I talked about this in an anxiety video, a few videos back, talking about action paralysis and just having this, what's called high functioning anxiety. And so I ran into some times over the last number of days where just getting started on things was hard. There's a lot of things going on outside of that are making some of these projects I'm working on more difficult than they should be. But it's not necessarily an excuse. It's just part of it's my body telling me you got to take a break, you got to rest. You've got some stressful things coming up. I want you to rest right now and get ready for the next round. And it's just, the holidays and just a lot of stuff. It's just not a fun time. Christmas is not great for everybody. And, I don't know. There are a number of things about it being Christmas week that have multiplied my stress and anxiety and, just general feelings of being worthless, being a worthless piece of trash, or, for lack of a better way to put it, then I would feel if it were just a normal week. And now that the Christmas thing is wrapped up, I've got some time to myself right now. I'm doing a video for you guys and all of that. But like I said, this video is going to be long. And the way I put it, I know that the YouTube attention span and all of the rules that you're supposed to follow about how long a video should be, 10 to 15 minutes. I even find myself clicking on a video that I'm interested in, and I look down at, I'm like, oh my God, this video is 20 minutes long. Oh, I gotta sit through this. So I understand. I totally understand. But I also listen to podcasts all the time. I listen to podcasts while I work. Sometimes I listen to videos that are like a podcast, like the video that I'm doing for you today. And I just put them off to the side on a separate screen or minimize the window and just listen to it one way or another. And there are people out there doing podcasts every single day that are 3 to 4 hours long. I think the Joe Rogan podcast is a few hours every single day, or at least Monday through Friday. I don't know. There are other podcasts or videos that come out day after day after day. I'm a follower of Cat Turd on X. He does a podcast with this other woman. Their podcast is at least an hour every single day. They talk about all kinds of stuff, and it holds my attention for the entire time. There's Adam Curry, the old MTV disc jockey, video jockey, whatever you want to call him. Him and another guy from the Silicon Valley Tech back in the day, they have a podcast called No Agenda. It's about 3 hours long. They do it twice a week. They've been doing it for a long, long time. I listen to that. I listen to other podcasts that are easily 3 hours per episode. I don't have a problem with that. So if you're 5 minutes into this video and your attention span can't hold out for an hour and a half, whatever the case may be, while I'm talking about some stuff, then go find some short attention span bullshit, because I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to do whatever. Some of my videos are 10 minutes. Some of them are an hour. Some of them are less. Some are more. It is what it is. Whatever. But, when it comes back to this, like, fear and anxiety paralysis, that's real. That's a real thing. Part of the reason why I'm just doing these videos the way I'm doing them is because if I was worried about everything being perfect, I wouldn't get them done. Because I would just sit here and hem and haw and, well, I can't do this or I can't do that. It's not perfect. Well, I don't have time, so I'm just going to put it off, blah, blah, blah. And then I wouldn't even get started on it, let alone finish anything. So, but I'm experiencing some of the paralysis in certain parts of my life pretty heavy in the last week or so. Like I said, things started out smoothly. I had a 9-day stretch of not having to go to the bakery. But after a few days of being really productive, things just dropped off a cliff. And there are a number of reasons for that I'm not going to mention, but there are frustrations, and I need to have a win. I need to get a win in the win column. When a football team goes week after week after week, and 5-6 weeks in a row, loss, how many people on the team just give the fuck up for the season? Because at that point, your season, you get 6 losses the first 6 weeks of the season, you don't get a win, your season's done. At this point, why bother? What are you even out on the field for at this point? You get into that kind of a mentality, and you don't even want to go out and play the game anymore. And, an 0-6 team could still come back and be, 12-6 if they turn things around. Sometimes you just have to get a win to change the momentum. And lately it's just been, even the small things I'm trying to close out and get a win for, I can't. And it's the anxiety from all that just keeps building up. And so the closer it got to Christmas Day, the worse and worse that anxiety ramped up. And, things, even on the days that I was productive, things didn't move as fast as I wanted them to. I had a goal at the beginning of the day. I want to be here. I got maybe 30% of the way there. And it's 10 o'clock at night. And I'm like, I got to quit. I didn't get anywhere close to where I wanted to get today. And that's not abnormal. That is not abnormal, by the way. Especially with creative professionals doing this kind of work. It's easy to think, I want to be here at the end of the day. And then at the end of the day, you got maybe halfway there or less. That is the story of my life for the last, 30 years of this professional career I've had. And that goes for anybody who does this kind of work. I could tell you all kinds of stories to back that up. But it still gets under your skin, and it not meeting your daily goal on a day-by-day basis, whether it's a designer's block, like a writer's block, or, just pushing through it helps, but sometimes it's just hard for different reasons, and sometimes it's not your fault, but it's still frustrating. So that, combined with Christmas, combined with some difficult goals I gotta meet next month, it's ground my mental capacity to be productive down to a halt. And it's not the first time that this has happened in my life. Creative people and lots of people go through this kind of a phase over and over throughout your life. You get burned out from time to time, and sometimes you got to sit back and take a break in order to recover from the burnout. There's another video from this woman I've been watching, Calmly Coping with Tati Garcia. And if you never watched their video where I talk about her, she's a woman whose main focus is helping high performers, as she puts it, cope with things like anxiety and stuff like that. She did a whole video about feeling guilty when you take time off to relax and recharge. And when I saw the video title, I'm like, yeah, that's me right now. I'm going through that right now. I might actually take that video and do a deep dive video of my own, talking about the things that she talks about, but in my own way and my own experiences on the subject. But for right now, in spite of the fact that I really have to perform at a high level, I absolutely must perform at the highest level I've ever performed in my life, or I will end up homeless again. That's a fact. I could end up back in prison if I don't. Like, there's so many very drastic consequences. It's not like, oh, I'm going to miss a rent payment and, or my car broke down and I'm not going to be able to fix it. No, you'll end up fucking homeless. At least you'll be in Houston where the weather's warmer until they kick your ass out of Texas and send you back to Pittsburgh. So, in spite of all of that, even the highest performing athletes need rest, right? In fact, they say athletic training, the rest is considered more important than the training itself, because it's the days off and the rest that your body actually gets stronger and rebuilds itself stronger than it was before. And I'm an athlete, believe it or not, even though, my physique doesn't really convey this right now, but I'm an athlete. I've been an athlete my whole life. And I do have the perfect verifiable example of what I'm talking about when it comes to athletics and training. To not only tell you how important this is, but also it helps convince myself that taking some time off to rest over the last week or so is not only okay, but it's necessary for me to actually come back and perform at the level I need to perform at next month. So I ride my bicycle to the bakery almost every day of a week sometimes. Sometimes for the entire week, I throw the hammer down and ride as hard as I possibly can and as fast as I can possibly go, to the point where my heartbeat is beating in my skull and I'm breathing really hard and I'm pouring out sweat and everything else. And sometimes I'll do this for an entire week. And sometimes the Strava app that I use will announce to me that I got a personal best time on a segment of a ride here and there, because it's measuring the current ride to every other ride I've ever taken and recorded on the same stretch of road. And it marks off different segments of these roads that other users or myself have determined this from here to here is a segment. You're racing against other people, but more importantly, you're racing against yourself. You're comparing your times against what other people did. But you're more important to me, you're comparing your time on the same stretch of road to every other time you've ridden the same stretch of road. So what normally happens in a week where I throw the hammer down every single day and push hard, as the week drags on, the times get slower and slower. And sometimes when I think I pushed myself harder than I have all week, the time comes back and tells me that it was the slowest I've been all week. Sometimes I get so worn out that I'm just pushing the pedals to get home and I'm struggling just to ride. And then I take a few days off from riding the bicycle. And what happens next? There have been a few times where I take 2 or 3 days off the bicycle and then I get back on the bike, and since it's the first day back on the bicycle, I'm like, I'm just going to chill out. I'm just going to ease back into it. And, maybe this time I won't throw the hammer down and I'll just ride at a brisk pace, but I don't want to feel my heart pounding in my head and get so sweaty that I have to go to this, job and work 6 to 8 hours and then ride my bike home after the fact. So I'll just chill and I'll go at a brisk pace, but I'm not trying to throw the hammer down. And then I hit the stop button on the app at the end of the ride, and when my ride's finished, what do I see? You beat your personal best on this segment. You beat your personal best on that other segment. You got your personal best on this third segment, and the screen is covered in all these little gold medal icons that indicate every part of the ride was the fastest I've ever ridden those segments of road, even though I wasn't even trying to go fast that day. So it's those 3 days of the recovery after I busted my ass for 5 or 6 days straight. Each day, my time kept getting slower and slower and slower, and the effort kept getting more and more and more, and I kept getting more and more exhausted throughout that week. I take 3 days off, I come back, I decide I'm just going to go, I'm going to do a chill ride, not even going to try hard. And it ends up being my personal best time across the board without even trying. Imagine how fast I would have gone if I actually dropped the hammer and decided to really nail it. So, you know, without even trying to beat my records, I didn't even expect to get any records on the ride after my 3-day break. So, if I relate this to my other experiences that are giving me all this anxiety, you know, April through May, I was dealing with a crippling anxiety of knowing, I 100% knew that I was going to be homeless before I could even get my hands on a new driver's license that I would need to even start looking for a job. And people were telling me, oh, you know, she's not that much of a cunt. She's not going to throw you out in the street. And I'm like, I don't know about that. You're not sitting in the chair that I'm sitting in every day, seeing and hearing and watching what I'm watching and seeing and hearing every day. I think I'm justified in this feeling concerned about this. And turned out I was right. In fact, the day that my driver's license showed up in the mail was the same day I was thrown out in the street. And then from May through September, I was homeless, struggling to figure anything out that would fix this situation. And to be honest, most of the solutions came out of the generosity of a friend and not from my own doing. And part of the solution came from God himself, putting things directly in my path almost magically and mysteriously that helped me at the right time. And I've talked about these in many videos. And so, yeah, I've had small periods of paralysis here and there since April. I don't know why it's so bad right now, but there's some mechanism inside me that relates back to always taking time to recharge from Christmas to New Year's Day. Year after year, if I look back at my entire life and career, that's always been the case. I get really stressed out leading up to Christmas, typically, even when things were good in my life. And right around then, I shut down, and once that holiday season has passed, I have all this energy once again. And I think a lot of people go through that. You know, this holiday stress is real, and I think that our society designs all these holidays to stress you out on purpose and to make you feel like shit on purpose. Part of it is because, you know, they want you out there spending all your money. And they've got people convinced that, you know, during the rest of the year, you should be spending money on yourself to make yourself happy. But in the Christmas holiday season, they really want you to believe if you're not spending X amount of money to make other people happy, you're a worthless piece of shit. You know, and that's basically what they do. But, you know, I'm not beating myself up too much over it right now. I'm in too precarious of a position in life to be dealing with that and getting too deep into that. You know, not like I said, nothing seems to be moving as fast as I need it to move. And right now, every aspect of my life feels like it's stuck again. And every time I try to get something unstuck, it remains stuck, or it only moves a little bit. It's like getting your Jeep stuck in the sand on a beach. You can rock that thing back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and all you're doing is digging yourself down into the sand even more. Or you might move 6 inches forward just to be stuck in more sand. Anybody who's gotten their Jeep stuck in the sand knows exactly what I'm talking about there. But things just feel stuck, and that in turn is adding to my anxiety about everything, and it causes me to collapse, and paralysis sets in, and then I have a hard time even starting anything. And so I did get some things done that needed to be accomplished, you know, small things that I could chip away at here and there. And if I'm really feeling anxiety, I'll go away from the computer and I'll just pick up something else that needs to be done. But there are a bunch of things on my to-do list that right now I just can't even bring myself to get started on. Some of which I could finish in a span of hours if I'd just start. But this has been a plague more than once on me throughout my life and career, and I know it happens to other people because there are a million people on YouTube talking about the same topic, and those videos get tons of views. So I know I'm not alone. Like I said, there are things on my list that would take 5 minutes of my time, and I just put them off because my heart jumps into my throat and I get all stressed out in a ridiculous manner when that happens, and I'll just push it off. The Texas driver's license situation is a major contributor to this right now. Even though it's something really simple that should have been done quickly, but easily it becomes stuck, and it starts this downward spiral that puts me in a negative place, right? You know, for example, when I discovered that I could go to the county website in New York where I was born and order my birth certificate from there, after I was told by the state website it was going to take 7 to 8 months to get the piece of paper. Once I found that form on the county website, I put this off for 2 more days because I got dizzy and my heart started racing to the point I thought I might have a heart attack just looking at the form to fill out. But then I made up my mind, I'm going to do it first thing tomorrow morning before I even have time to think about this. And I did exactly that. I sat down in the morning, filled out the form, sent the payment in, and the whole submission of the order and the questions I had to answer and fill out took 3 minutes of my time. But it took me 2 days to convince myself to get started on that and do it, because I just couldn't deal with the stress of it. And it was very, very basic questions. I mean, they asked me, like, what's your mother's maiden name? What's your name? What's your father's name? When were you born? Where were you born? Bang, bang, bang. What's your credit card number? Done. The birth certificate showed up by FedEx 3 days later. Done. I'll be waiting until July or August for the other birth certificate that I ordered from the state to come, unless I can get a refund from them, but that's a whole nother... I'm not even going to try to do that. That's another thing I'm putting off because I don't feel like dealing with the stress of right now. Maybe I'll just let it ride and get another copy of my birth certificate in 8 months. But there's another thing. There's another thing I had to do this week, and it literally took me 5 minutes, but it makes me sick to even think about doing it, even though getting it done would drop my stress level by 10 levels. And, you know, there's other things, and I'm not going to get into the specifics, but... So there's a guy I know, he's a good friend of mine now. He goes through the same level of anxiety when it comes to logging into websites, like his email, social media, and things like that. And some of you might sit back and think, what, really? But think about it. Every platform that you log into now, excuse me, every platform that you log into right now has more and more complicated procedures on how to log into things. You know, passwords need to be so intricate now that you can no longer remember them easily. Each platform has some sort of secondary login called two-factor requirements, where you need to enter a code sent to your phone, bring up a special app on your phone with some QR code, or even more complex systems like a pass key or some other verification. You know, I got locked out of my bank down here in Texas because a pass key stored on my MacBook wouldn't work. And when I called them on the phone, they got really nasty with me when I asked them to remove the requirement for the pass key so I could log into my account. And they got real snotty with me. And it was difficult to get them to unlock my account so I could log back in. And now I have to sometimes scan my fingerprint with my phone when I try to log in with the bank account on my Macintosh laptop, which means I always have to have the phone with me when I log into the bank account. And so there's all these complicated things you got to do now to log into stuff. To help you with that, there are about 3 or 4 password management apps. There's one called LastPass, there's one called Bitwarden, and then there's Proton Pass, which is part of Proton Mail. I've used them all three of those myself. Proton Pass is the one that I suggest to people nowadays. It's the one that I prefer. But each of these have crazy levels of verification for logging into those, and rightfully so, because you don't want it to be easy for someone to log into the platform where you store all of your passwords to everything. But these apps will automatically fill out login forms for you when you go to different platforms where your password has been stored. And so typically when I go to log into, 20 different platforms, I don't have to remember the password. The browser plugin for Proton Pass will automatically populate the username and password fields for me. But I still might have to get a code on my phone or go through some secondary process. But it's real easy these days to lock yourself out of your necessary tools. LastPass itself locked me out of my master password account at least 3 or 4 times over the years I was using it. And that's the reason why I ditched it in favor of Bitwarden at the time, at which point later on I ditched for Proton Pass. Mainly that switch was more because of usability and user experience, especially with how it works on the phone. Proton works way better on the phone than any of the other apps in terms of that. But this friend of mine with the password issue, he loses his mind. He starts to hyperventilate. He gets all flustered. He like wants to throw things. He can't focus on anything, and his anxiety, he goes from being the most chill, calm dude you've ever met to like his anxiety just going through the roof if he can't log into something and he has to try and remember some password. His anxiety gets to the point where he can't function, and then he has to change the subject or walk away from the thing or whatever it is. Instead of logging into the app that he needs to log into, he'll just put it off and say, I'll do that next week because I don't have time. The same thing I went through with filling out a 2-minute form to order a birth certificate. I had to put it off for 2 days because I couldn't face it. And so like he has a problem with the password managers because the password managers have their own level of security to climb over and unlock, and and because we can't rely on passwords that are memorable, and you don't want to use the same password for everything you log into, his stress goes through the absolute roof when it comes to logging into things, something that many of us consider to be relatively simple, and in spite of the fact that it's getting more complex over time. And so, but like I said, it's the same paralysis that takes over me when it came to just ordering the birth certificate and giving that another try after I was told it was going to take 8 months by the state of New York. I go to the county website. It looks promising. It took me 2 days to talk myself into it because I couldn't deal with I couldn't deal with the possibility that things were going to turn into the same shit show. And now I'm going to be even more angry and frustrated and out another $80. And so I couldn't deal with it for 2 days until I finally just forced myself to do it at a time in the morning when I hadn't even woke up enough to start processing all those thoughts yet. It was I got out of bed, I walked over to the computer, chicka, done. I didn't even think about it, because if I did start thinking about it, would have been the end of the day. I wouldn't have got it done. But anyway, this guy's not the only person I've seen get completely paralyzed when it comes to passwords and logging into things. I think it's actually fairly common. I've seen this a lot with people that I've worked with over the years. And I think part of the reason is security. You don't want people being able to break into things easily. But I think another reason why things are getting so convoluted and complicated is because they want people to line up and accept the mark of the beast, either in the wrist or the forehead, however they're going to do it, the barcode on your, here, or the barcode across your forehead, or the chip, or whatever it's going to be. people are it's gonna start out as the easy way to pay for things. Just scan your wrist, bloop, you pay for something. It's like Apple Pay built into your wrist. You don't even need to bring your phone. And that's how it's gonna start. And it's also gonna be, you know, one of the major ways that they sell this to the public. You know, in fact, you can already get a microchip implanted. You've been able to do this since the year 2000, to be honest. You can get a microchip implanted in your arm, an RFID chip that works like Apple Pay. But the second phase of the Mark of the Beast is going to be something like the COVID scam. You're not going to be able to get into a public place like a grocery store, a nightclub, a restaurant, whatever the case may be, without scanning your Mark of the Beast. You know, just like they tried doing with these bullshit vaccine cards where you had to show your vaccine pass to be able to go to the grocery store. You had to show your vaccine pass to go to a fucking restaurant. That was the test run of the Mark of the Beast. It's a lot cheaper to just, you know, see if these dumbass lemmings will hold up that cheap-ass printout of their vaccine card rather than go into all the trouble to inject the microchips into everybody. But they got a good idea of who's going to go for it and who's not. They're gonna find another excuse to try this shit again. And then it will be just what the Bible said. You will not be able to buy or sell without the mark. But when it comes to passwords, back to that, you know, that's something I don't really struggle with, even when I have major issues with the passwords, like being locked out of my password manager and all that kind of stuff. And when I went to prison, I lost every email account and phone number that I've ever owned. So when I got out of prison, unlocking everything that I thought I was going to be locked out of forever was a painstaking process, and it took about 2 months to get through it. And there are maybe 3 platforms to this day that there is stuff in there that's my data, but I'm locked out of it forever because I don't have the email address or the phone number that was associated with them. And without those, the companies will not unlock your account. No, you can't provide 20 different forms of identification to prove who you are. You are locked out forever. But even in spite of that, even when I was going through getting my stuff unlocked after prison, I never felt the level of anxiety that this friend of mine, feels simply when he has to log into his Gmail account and his password expired and he has to log in again. You know, sometimes when you log into something over and over again, a few months goes by and it asks you, hey, can you enter your password just to make sure it's you? If that happens to him when he's logging into his email, he completely freaks out and loses his mind, and he like has a major panic attack over it. And I'm not saying that that's I'm just saying that that's a level of anxiety because it's something that stresses you out. Just like the birth certificate thing for me stressed me out. You know, just ordering the birth certificate, taking 2 minutes to fill out a form. I had to put it off for 2 days because I couldn't face the consequences if something went wrong. If everything goes smooth, great. I get a win in the win column today. But if something goes wrong and I'm denied my birth certificate for the second time in 2 weeks, I'm going to lose my mind. So, but the point circles back to that I'm not the first one who's gone through this kind of anxiety, and it won't be the last time I ever go through it. Sometimes your body and mind, they just take on too much abuse, and then all of a sudden your mind just shuts down. I think the stress that I've been going through over the last 9 months of my life warrants a full mind and body shutdown. Like, how can somebody carry that kind of stress load before they finally just break down from it? You know, how long can someone walk across the desert without any water before they just fall down from thirst? You know what I'm saying? Like, I would say that the paralysis, the anxiety, the having a problem getting started on things is worse right now than it's been since I got released from prison. And it really stems from a feeling that I should be farther along recovering from this disaster and putting a life back together than I currently am. And that I risk becoming homeless again and all these other severe negative consequences, and maybe some of these things aren't even my fault. Like right now, the job market is abysmal. You know, we're talking, you know, X just blew up this week with Elon Musk fighting against the Trump supporters over the H-1B visa scam, where, you know, they bring in the Indian tech workers to replace the Americans, and the Indians become indentured servants working for 1/3 of the cost. And it pushes down the wages in the job market, and it also makes it so U.S. citizens can't even get a job in their own country anymore. And so that's been going on. The job market is abysmal, and that's that problem in my line of work is partly to blame for contributing to that. And I'm not going to use that as an excuse for my situation, but I can certainly relate to a few other times in my life and career where the job market was non-existent and I had to wait several months, in some cases up to a year, just to find any job in my line of work. And it never mattered how hard I worked toward finding a job, just nothing would happen. I can go back to the dot-com bubble in the early 2000s, the George W. Bush stock market crash of 2008. I mean, those are two examples of it right there. And now Bidenomics has taken over. Now I'm in the third round of the same shit show. I mean, the Democrats, fucking Democrats, you've destroyed our economy right now. You've destroyed it. And my LinkedIn feed proves it right now, as half to 2/3 of all the people that I still communicate on there with, who I actually know, are currently unemployed right now with zero prospects. I mean, I don't even know if America is going to survive to reach January 20th, when we can get rid of this creepy old child molesting dickhead and his merry band of transgendered minions. But and right there, that I think I can just stop the topic right now and get on to the other topic that I wanted to talk about for this video, and that is, do I hate everybody in the government? So we're at 37 minutes right now, and I've still got some stuff to say. But if you stop this video in the next few minutes and you don't watch it all the way to the end, you're probably going to have an opinion about me that you might not have if you continue to watch all the way to the end. Nothing like using a statement like that to plug getting my viewership higher for people who watch the whole video. But you will have a different opinion about me if you turn the video off in the next 5 minutes than you will if you watch all the way to the end. I'm just going to leave it there. I'm going to share some stories about things that I've experienced at the hand of government officials to help answer this question. When people constantly ask me about my FBI case, how the hell did you get so angry that you lashed out the way you did and caused all this trouble for yourself? How did you get that mad? And so I'm going to use a few examples, just a few, because I got 20 hours worth. I could just roll off the top of my head with one after the next. I wouldn't even have to take notes. But I'm just going to use a few examples right now to explain why I'm so bitter and angry when it comes to these douchebags in our government, and how this stuff accumulated over several years of having one bad experience after the next. But I don't want people to go around thinking that I'm using those things that happened to me as an excuse for what I did that got me sent to federal prison. So I'm not trying to use that as an excuse and blame those people for my own actions, okay? We just got to set the tone before I go down this road. Set the tone up front. But what I'm trying to convey is that when you are going through these kinds of experiences that I'm about to share with you yourself, and seeing how corrupt these people can be in positions of power, I'm telling you this to warn you that if you stoop to the same level of lashing out with a verbal temper tantrum on social media, that can land you in prison just like it did with me, and it'll make your situation a hell of a lot worse if you take things too far like I did that day. So there are more constructive ways to fight back against these people that won't cause you to end up in prison, make people fear for their lives, ruin your relationships, and destroy everything you worked for in your whole life. The point is that it wasn't like I just woke up one random day in August of 2022 and all of a sudden I'm pissed off about the federal government and how they're treating Donald Trump. But that's what the media wants you to believe. They just want you to believe I'm this crazy jackass who got mad one week and, Trump supporter, and all Trump supporters are just like this guy, etc., etc. My anger and frustration was more of a result of experiencing all kinds of corruption at the hands of the people in charge over and over and over and over and over and over and over again since I was a teenager, that accumulated over a period of 30 years. Pretty much nonstop. I could go on and on and on. But instead of finding better ways to deal with that anger and frustration, I lashed out with a bunch of garbage and violent rhetoric that would not have made anyone who personally knew me, nobody who personally knew me would even flinch at the words coming out of my mouth that day. We all said things like that to each other all the time. And we know that we weren't serious when we're talking to each other. We're just venting, blowing off steam, making a couple jokes, dark humor jokes, whatever the case may be. But nobody that I personally knew would say, oh, Adam's going to march into the FBI office and mow down a bunch of feds today. No, he's just pissed. But in today's charged climate and how batshit crazy everybody is in this country right now, complete strangers could read that and feel like we have a potential killer on our hands. And so that's the problem right there. I said the quiet part out loud, so to speak. And, I've been told by many, many people that they have either felt the same way I did and almost did the same thing I did themselves. I've also been told that my case made people stop in their tracks once they found out they could end up like me over it. And they were going to do the same thing I did, but that stopped them from doing it. Seeing me all over the national news sure as hell made a lot of angry people shut up on social media and stop shitposting that week. I know that for sure. I've been told over and over again. I've had friends come out of the woodwork since I got home telling me, dude, that could have easily been me. I was just about to do it myself. I've had comments on this YouTube channel from people suggesting they were as angry as I was at the government, and that they even went so far as to say things like I said. But then they went and deleted them when they found out what the consequences could be, and they were lucky enough that those comments that they made didn't get elevated to the attention of the national news. And so I wanted to delete this shit, delete my Gab account over the weekend after I made the statements that week and just forget about it. That was on my mind at some point on Friday. But I was exhausted. I had a lot going on. I had been traveling for over a month straight without really a day off. I was exhausted. I was falling asleep in a chair at 7 o'clock in the evening when the sun was still out. I decided to go to bed and worry about it tomorrow. But it wouldn't have mattered anyway because the FBI was already planning to raid my house and drive a tank through the front door as many as 2 days before they came and did it. So the game, it was already game over. I just didn't know yet. And so, yeah, I'm going through a hassle right now and trying to get my driver's license to reflect my new residence. It should not be this difficult. And that experience, of course, has triggered memories of other bad experiences that I've had with these scumbag government officials, of which, like I said over and over, there's too many to list. And in the last video, I shared a story about how a corrupt judge in Pittsburgh stuck me with driving with a suspended license conviction when my driver's license had never been suspended in the first place, and how it was just part of a scam that the neighborhood was running. You know, the judge was probably putting a lot of that money in his own pocket, and the judge was eventually tossed from the bench for being an alcoholic after he had thrown over 800 people in jail while he was too drunk off his ass to bang the gavel on the desk. Okay? So thinking about that situation, and if you want to hear that in more detail, go to the last video or two. It's in there somewhere. But this reminds me of another story about another scumbag judge in Pittsburgh. A judge that, ironically, creepy Joe Biden just set free a couple of weeks ago with his, blanket pardons that he's handing out to everybody, like Halloween candy. And I'm just going to read parts of a news article from the Associated Press because it outlines this whole scandal, and I'm going to mix it in with some of my own commentary. I was living in Pittsburgh when all of this happened, and it was a huge scandal at the time. And this affected people that I knew directly, and I'll get into that. But a judge who helped orchestrate one of the worst judicial scandals in U.S. history, a scheme to send children to for-profit jails in exchange for kickbacks from those jails, was among the 1,500 people whose sentences were commuted by President Joe Biden this week. Biden's decision to commute the 17-year prison sentence of Michael Conahan angered many in northeastern Pennsylvania, from the governor, a Democrat, down to the families whose children were victimized by the disgraced former judge. Conahan had already served the vast majority of his sentence, which was handed down back in 2011. I do feel strongly that President Biden got it absolutely wrong and created a lot of pain here in northeastern Pennsylvania. Governor Josh Shapiro, a Democrat, the governor of Pennsylvania, said during an unrelated news conference in Scranton on Friday. So even the Democrats are fed up with this creepy old hair-sniffing child molester scumbag pretending to be president. The Democrats are fed the fuck up with him now. I mean, this scandal affected families in really deep and profound ways, Shapiro added. Conahan deserves to be behind bars, not walking as a free man. So, in what came to be known as the Kids for Cash scandal, Conahan and another judge, Mark Civarella, shut down a county-run juvenile detention center and accepted $2.8 million in illegal payments from a friend of Conahan's who built and co-owned the two for-profit lockups. So one of these places was called the Lumen Center, and it was a juvenile detention center. I know a lot of people who've been locked up in that place, and I lived in Pittsburgh for a long time. And I personally know people whose kids were thrown in there by these judges. Kids who spent time there. They were throwing kids in these juvenile detention centers for mouthing off to a teacher, stealing a fucking candy bar. I mean, they would probably get thrown in there if they were caught jaywalking. If you skipped school, you're going to juvenile detention hall. Pretty much any kid for any reason who was brought before one of these two judges for any reason at all was being found guilty and thrown into the juvenile detention center without a second thought. No warnings, no fines, no second chances, zero tolerance. And then as a result, that judge is getting a check in the mail from the juvenile detention center for every kid that he sends in there, because they're making money off of this and their judges are getting a kickback for this. So the city of Pittsburgh had to shut down the Lumen Center. They eventually shut the place down after the scandal because of child abuse by the employees, poor medical care, and, the whole bribing the judges to keep the beds full thing. All of these reasons, they shut that bitch down. Well, they reopened it this year. This year, they reopened it. And now, before I move to the positive part of my chosen topic for the second half of today's video, I'm going to dig deeper into this concept of the private prisons. Private prisons, privately run prisons, for profit, are just another example of how these corrupt scumbags who run this country continue to get rich off the backs of the poor and make it even more difficult for people to pick themselves up from poverty. This is another example of how when you're at the top, your biggest mission is to keep anyone from taking you down and to suck up as much of the wealth as you can from those below. So, Judge Civarella, who presided over juvenile court, he pushed that zero tolerance policy that guaranteed large numbers of children would fill the beds of the private lockups. And the scandal prompted the Pennsylvania Supreme Court to throw out more than 4,000 juvenile convictions involving more than 2,300 kids. 2,300 kids had their records cleaned because they were thrown into these juvenile detention centers by these corrupt fucking judges. Imagine how much a kid's life could be ruined for life before they even have a fucking chance to start because one of these scumbag pieces of shit threw them in a fucking private-run prison hellhole for kids when they were, 15 years old and traumatized them for life. Fuck these scumbags. These two scumbags should have been fucking hanged for what they did. I'm sorry, but they should have been hanged. They shouldn't have been able to go to fucking prison for that. But I'm against the death penalty, so remember, I've talked about that. But I told you already, if someone harmed my children, I would want to see that person strung up by the fucking balls and choked to death with, a curtain and a glass window for the audience to see. Just like, the electric chair is some horrible, horrible way to die. I would want to see that if somebody harmed my own children. But I am against the death penalty, and I talked about why. I've talked about it in more than one video. Go back and watch them. Sandy Fonzo, whose son killed himself at age 23 after this piece of shit judge locked him up as a teen, called Conahan's commutation an injustice. I'm shocked and I'm hurt, she said in a statement provided to the Citizen's Voice of Wilkes-Barre, PA. Conahan's actions destroyed families, including mine, and my son's death is a tragic reminder of the consequences of his abuse of power. This pardon feels like an injustice for all of us who still suffer. Right now, I am processing and doing the best I can to cope with the pain that this has brought back. Scumbags. The sad thing is, this judge pocketed $2.8 million from these bribes, and these are just the bribes that we know about. I guarantee you that this fucking guy, through his corrupt scumbaggery, even though he sat in prison, for 13 of his 17-year sentence, he's still coming home to a nice house. He isn't going to end up fucking homeless like I did. And I can most assuredly guarantee you that he has at least $1 million tucked away somewhere. So he's going to live out the rest of his pathetic life in relative comfort. He's never going to have to work again. He isn't going to have to worry about jack shit. He's got paid, and he's going to live the life now that he's been commuted and gets to go home. One thing I can tell you from experience, I met more rich people in jail than I've met in my entire life leading up to that point. And keep in mind, I was fired from a job working for the sister of the CEO of Amazon right now. And I was fired by her for going to the hospital for the birth of my son. And that's just one rich cunt that I've met out of tons and tons and tons of rich people that I've met through the course of my life. But these criminals, the criminals who end up in prison, they know how to keep their money hidden and untouchable even from the federal government. These people, when they're in prison, they're not lacking when it comes to commissary. And they're making sure that they got plenty of funds to make their life in prison as comfortable as it can possibly be. Steve Bannon has been in the news a lot. When I watched the video of Steve Bannon being released from his 4 months of prison at Danbury, where I spent the 4 months prior to his arrival, I looked at that video different than most of you did. Simply because I was there. I was there for the same amount of time he was. And you want to know the first thing I noticed? first of all, the guy's still really fat. He's fat. He didn't lose any weight while he was at a prison camp full of nothing to do but ways to lose weight. There's nothing else to do at that fucking place but lose weight and do things that will cause you to lose weight. And he had several of these nylon laundry bags that the prisoners keep their commissary in, and he was lugging all these fucking bags with himself as he walked out the door. So I don't even know how much shit this guy gave away to people before he left the prison, because people do that when they're being released. But he walked out carrying a ton of shit. So this guy had the maximum spending limit on his commissary account every single week when the commissary orders came around and you were allowed to go to the prison store. He was getting the maximum order every single fucking time. Every single time. He was not hurting for food. He had every single creature comfort and every single thing you could possibly have in a place like that to make your stay as comfortable as it can be. There are people in prison who run what's called the store. And these people, they'll spend their maximum amount that they're allowed to spend on commissary. And then these people, they also go around asking all the other inmates if they're going to spend their maximum amount on the commissary. And then they will give you an offer. Like if I say to this person, no, I'm not going to commissary this week, the person will offer to have one of their friends on the outside put money on my books. And he'll give me a list of things that he wants me to buy for him on the commissary. And he'll allow me to keep some of the money for myself so that I can buy some things for myself. So for example, someone might offer to put $50 on your books and you can keep 10 of that and you buy these $40 worth of things that I'm looking for. It could be more, it could be less. It depends on a lot of different factors, how good of friends you are with someone, lots of different factors at play there. It's a hustle. It's a jailhouse hustle. So these people, the store runners, they come back from the commissary with 10 big-ass fucking laundry bags full of stuff, and they have like 6 fucking storage lockers under their bed, and they've got all this crazy shit stockpiled. And so when another inmate needs a bag of chips, some pop, meat, whatever you can think of, and it's either going to be a week before you can go to the commissary store, you only get to go once a week, or shopping, or their own commissary runs out, whatever the case may be, you go to the store guy and you get whatever you need, but you're going to pay a premium. If you thought 7-Eleven marked up their fucking shit and charged you a lot of stuff, that bag of potato chips that cost $2.50 at the prison commissary, it costs $10 from the store guy. I knew a store guy who was buying 12 packs of Coca-Cola from the commissary, and then he was for $8 for a 12 pack, $8 for a 12 pack of pop. And then he was selling the individual cans for $10 to $15 a piece. That's a $168 profit on a 12 pack of pop. That's how the prison stores are run. So, but running a prison commissary store of your own comes with its own set of unique challenges, let's just say. I've seen people get stabbed and beaten close to death over a bag of fucking potato chips. Fighting over a bag of fucking potato chips. And I don't mean like a regular size bag of potato chips you buy at the grocery store. No, I'm talking about the snack size bag of potato chips that you would get in a fucking Halloween bucket when you were a kid. They're fighting and killing each other and stabbing each other and beating each other to death over a tiny little bag of potato chips. So if you're running the commissary store, you've got to have the ability to collect the money when the money's due, so to speak, and stop people who want to stab you and take your commissary store away from you and open up their own commissary store down the hall. That's how it works in prison. But the point is, when you're rich and you have money stashed away somewhere because you're a drug dealer, if you committed wire fraud, whatever you did to get rich, even if it was criminal activity, you've got that money stashed away somewhere where the federal government can't touch it. Prison will be a lot more comfortable for you than it would be if you're poor. I knew plenty of people who would buy a can of Coca-Cola for $15 without batting an eye. Like it was nothing. They didn't give a fuck. Why? Because they've got $20 million stashed away from their drug dealing days and their other criminal activity, and they can easily get their people on the outside to dump money onto their books all the time in prison. So $15 for a can of Coke is nothing when you got $20 million sitting in the bank for when you come home in 20 years. So I put it this way. I know a guy who bought his 16-year-old daughter a brand spanking new Mercedes for her 16th birthday, and he did it from prison. Think about that. Just let some of these things sink in. I'm telling you some shit that you would never know unless you hear it from someone who's been through it. So, do you honestly think people like this are going to be living like paupers and they're going to be poor when they're released from prison? You know, prison, honestly, to me, prison is the biggest demonstration of the difference between the haves and the have-nots you can ever witness in your life. There are so many aspects to jail and prison that you just wouldn't understand or realize until you've seen it with your own eyes. But the difference between the rich and poor, if you're poor in federal prison, they don't even give you fucking soap. I had to buy soap just to be able to wash my armpits and my fucking Fremunda cheese from down in my crotch. They don't even provide you with basic hygiene and soap in federal prison. You have to buy it, which means you have to have somebody on the outside putting money on your books for you so you can buy a fucking bar of soap. And so if you're in federal prison and you don't have anybody on the outside world who gives a shit about you, not only are you broke and poor, you can't even wash your fucking balls. You cannot even wash your hairy, fucking smelly ass balls. You can get it wet in the shower. Maybe you could pick up some fucking soap off the floor that somebody dropped. I guess you do what you gotta do, but you can't even, they don't even give you a fucking bar of soap. Just let this shit sink in for a minute, okay? So I'm just getting started and we're an hour and 2 minutes into this bitch, and we still got some minutes to go. Beware. I'm drifting off topic here, and I want to get back to the Schumann Center scandal in Pittsburgh to start. So this juvenile law center, which represented plaintiffs in a $200 million civil judgment against Conahan and Civarella, said in a statement that it supported Biden's actions but wants to see the same kind of compassion and mercy extended to juvenile defendants around the country. So, you know what? Fuck you, Juvenile Law Center. Those judges deserve to be fucking hanged for what they did. They're scum of the fucking earth. They're gonna be scum of the fucking earth until they die. It seems to me that the only people who are getting mercy and compassion from Biden and his transgender crony brigade are Democrats and people who bribe the Biden family themselves, like Hunter, and woke criminals. But if you're a Republican sitting in prison, you know, if you're a 90-year-old grandmother who took a tour of the Capitol on January 22nd, wow, whatever day it was, I don't even fucking know anymore. I don't even know what day it was anymore. Is it January 6th? Yeah, whatever it was. If you're a 70-year-old grandma who took a tour of the Capitol that day, you aren't getting any fucking mercy and compassion from Biden. But if you're a fucking mass murderer who, went through a gender change while you were in prison, you're out on the fucking street now, living your life, living your best life. But if you're a Republican sitting in prison right now, you're shit out of luck. So this judge, back to him, Conahan, yeah, he was a powerful figure in northeastern Pennsylvania before his arrest. I mean, this guy was regularly meeting for breakfast with the reputed boss of an area mafia family. You think? When he pleaded guilty in 2010, Conahan apologized to the youth that he had hurt. The system is not corrupt, Conahan said at the time. I was corrupt. Well, you still are, you fucking scumbag, number one. And number two, you two are you're the judges that got caught. Or you're the two patsies that were thrown out there for public consumption but there's thousands of other judges doing the exact same shit that didn't get caught. So in 2020, this guy, he got released. He's home free now, but this motherfucker was already home free because in 2020, Conahan was released to home confinement with 6 years left on his sentence as part of an effort to slow the spread of COVID-19 in federal prisons. So boom, there you go. Poor people in prison to combat COVID, they're spending 23 hours a day locked in a jail cell that's, maybe 6 feet by 10 feet. Not even allowed to walk around in some shitty little gym for more than a couple hours a week. Locked in a fucking box. Eating their fucking meals out of a fucking box. They don't even get to walk to the chow hall anymore. Poor people, that's how they spend their that's how they slow the spread of COVID-19. But when you're a rich, scumbag, crooked-ass judge, you get to go sit in your fucking mansion for the rest of your prison sentence. Yeah, you're on house arrest and you probably got an ankle monitor on your leg. But you're, boo fucking who, you're sitting in your fucking mansion. You probably got 20 fucking acres to walk around. That's, your property line is marked on this GPS ankle bracelet that you're walking around with. But, this corrupt fucking scumbag judge who got bribed almost $3 million, he's probably got 20 fucking acres to roam around. So, there you go. Like I said, the poor people are spending 23 hours a day locked in a cell, not even allowed to walk around, and this fucking crooked-ass judge is already home. And then Joe Biden just took the ankle bracelet off last week. So, the other judge, Civarella, who went to trial and was convicted of some of the charges he faced, he's serving a 28-year sentence. But I guess he didn't save enough of his bribe money to pay the Biden family for his release. So I think he's still sitting in jail. I don't know. So once again, do I hate everybody in the government? Sure does fucking sound like it, doesn't it? It sure does sound like it. When you look at everything as a whole, I don't have very many nice things to say about these fucking dirtbags, do I? No, not at all. But if I sit and analyze some things in my own life, while I cannot say that I hate everybody that works for the government, I'm definitely prejudiced enough that first of all, I'll never be friends with someone if I know they work for the government. It's a deal breaker. We're done. I won't talk to you. I don't want to hang out with you. I don't want to get to know you. I don't want to be your friend. I don't want to come over for dinner. I don't want to go fishing with you. I don't want to go on a bike ride with you. I don't want to go camping with you. I don't want to be in the same fucking vehicle with you. I don't care. I don't want anything to fucking do with you. Like, for example, if I met a girl, we went out on a date or two, and for whatever reason, we had a really good time, but we didn't talk about work or what we do for a living. Maybe a couple of dates went by. If I found out she had a job in the government, ghosted. Bitch, we're done. I'm never going to talk to you again. You're ghosted. We're never talking again. I'll never send you a text. I'll never reply. You're ghosted. We're done. I don't want anything to do with you if I know that. Here's the thing. People who work for the government in any capacity, and I'm talking from the president all the way down to the janitor of the bathroom at the IRS office. The people who work for the government in any capacity, they do so for one of two reasons, sometimes a combination of both. Reason number one, they want to be in a position of power over other people. They want to be in a position of power to take advantage of people, to rise up the ranks and enrich themselves with that power, money, influence, and everything else that comes with it. They want to be part of the club. They want to use and abuse that power to get paid in the form of bribes and other means and climbing more ladders to higher places of power. That's reason number one. Reason number two, they're lazy. They're lazy and they found an easy path to retirement. You can go work for the government and take an almost do-nothing job where you just sit at a desk tapping a fucking pencil on a desk or looking at cat videos on YouTube all day, and it pays 3 times more than the equivalent private sector job. It comes with better job security, and even better, it comes with a pension that they can collect without having to work anymore after they sit at their desk fucking around on YouTube for 20 to 30 years, whatever it ends up being. So tell me I'm wrong. Argue with me down in the comments. Tell me if I'm wrong. How many times do you go into a government office where the employees treat you like pure garbage? They're completely rude to you. They're incompetent. They're slow. They have absolutely no empathy. They don't have any sense of urgency at all to get the job done and move people through the process and get the next person in line up to the window. These are the people who know. These people know that they're locked in. And they know they can treat you as bad as they want to treat you because they know there's no consequences for their actions. Zero. None. I run into these people all the time whenever I have to deal with a government office of any kind. And I know you do too. I know you do. I hear these stories all the time. All the time. When I was telling people at the bakery about my experience at the DMV, all I had to say was, yeah, I went to the DMV the other day. That's all it took. Everybody started making the cringe face. Ooh, sorry to hear that. And the sighing and the groaning and the rolling of their eyes and all in sympathy toward me. Because they know. Nobody ever starts a sentence with, I went to the DMV, ... without some crazy ass shit to share with everybody. So I had to deal with some arrogant government dickwad who's really comfortable treating the people of this community like dog shit all day because he knows he only has a few more years to sit on his fat ass before his pension kicks in. And then he can sit at home watching porn without being interrupted by you fucking assholes that need your driver's license. And as for the people who want to seek positions of power so they can take advantage of others, let's rewind the tape a little bit and go back to this whole concept of private prisons. I spent 2 months in a privately run prison as part of my sentence between the day the FBI drove a tank into my house and dragged me off to the Butler County Jail just down the road from where Donald Trump got shot in the ear, and when I ended up in the federal low-security prison in Danbury, Connecticut, where Steve Bannon just got released from. In between those 2 spots, I was in 4 different places. The Butler County Prison is the county jail in Pennsylvania that's run like a maximum security prison. I did not see the sun or a fucking tree for 14 months. That was followed by staying in a privately run, a corporate-run, for-profit prison in Youngstown, Ohio, called the Northeast Ohio Corrections Center, generally known as CCA by the inmates because they think it's owned by this corporation called Corrections Corporation of America, but it's actually owned by a private company called Core Civic, which is one of the 2 private prison companies in America. Anyway, that was followed by a 1-month stay at the Federal Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn, most famous right now for being P. Diddy's new crib. And then that was followed by the 4 months at FCI Danbury in Connecticut. So when I was locked up at this privately run prison in Ohio, run by a private company called Core Civic, it's a for-profit prison, I saw the craziest shit I ever saw during my 600-day long ordeal. I was locked up for 600 days, like I told you earlier in the video. 600 days, think about it in terms of that's 1 year, 7 months, and 22 days. Or 19 months and 22 days. That's 51,840,000 seconds. 864,000 long ass minutes. 14,400 hours. 85 weeks and 5 days. All right, so I spent 600 days. I spent 2 months in this place in Ohio. And the first thing that you notice right away when they take you there, all the guards are fucking teenagers. The guards at this fucking prison made the TSA agents that search you when you go through the airport line look like they were tough motherfuckers compared to these teenage girls serving as correction officers at this private prison. At the jails, the other places that I stayed, the people who ran the place, the guards, by and large, were guards that you would not want to fuck with. They can throw down. You know that if you start trying to throw down, you are going to get beat down. But when you're at this private prison in Ohio, there's like 18-year-old girls as corrections officers. There's like 50 and 60-year-old women that are frail and like bony and skinny and like unfucking believable. And I seen maybe one or two guards in the whole place that could actually throw down if there was a physical altercation. In fact, there was this one autistic guard. He was a little bit nuts, and he was probably 22 years old. And he was just this skinny little autistic kid who he was completely out of it. Like, straight up, like the fucking banjo kid on the movie in West Virginia and Kentucky, Deliverance, right? Like that level. A big giant brawl broke out where a bunch of people got stabbed. This corrections officer was in the corner of the fucking cell block with his hands over his ears going, make it stop, make it stop. While all the fucking inmates on the cell block are running around with big fucking knives and chasing each other and slicing each other open and shit. He was trying to get off the fucking cell block, and he couldn't even make his fucking key work because he was so fucking flustered. And so never ending chaos at this place. Okay. I'm not even, if I wanted to talk, ask me if you want to hear more stories about the Northeast Ohio Correction Center, because fuck, man, I could make this video 8 hours long. I was there for 2 months, and it would take me 5 months to tell you all the stories. Just gonna leave it there. I'm just gonna break it down. They had a shakedown before I got there. There's probably 5,000 inmates in this prison. They had a major shakedown where they brought law enforcement officers from all over the country, because this place is notorious for being one of the biggest shit shows and one of the most dangerous prisons in America right now. So hundreds of law enforcement from all over the country came in, swarmed on this place. They found 900 cell phones. They found between 2,500 and 3,000 knives, prison shanks and knives. And they found 2 guns, 2 loaded guns. 2 loaded guns. Just getting started. Now, I'm not even, never mind the hooch and the drugs. There were 10 to 20 to 30 gallon bags of hooch in every single cell of the prison, every single cell. I'm just going to leave it at that. I have never seen more drugged out people and deuced out on K2, which is also known as Deuce. I've never seen more fucked up people in my life. You'd walk into the cell block, half the fucking cell block people would just be walking around like fucking zombies or passed out on the fucking floor. I'll tell you one story. They have these TVs hanging up on the railings of the second tier. And they were on these TV stands, these 1080p TVs. They had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 TVs on the cell block. From commissary, you could buy a little FM radio with some headphones, and then you could watch whichever TV you wanted to watch had a radio station. You could listen to the TV with your headphones on. This one dude gets in a fight inside of most of the time when the inmates fight with each other, they do it inside of their cells so that it's not so much on camera and the guards don't really know what was going on. Well, anyway, this fight breaks out, and we all knew that there was a fight going on upstairs. And so I'm like, oh, what the fuck's gonna happen now? Are we all gonna get locked in our cells for the whole day? What the fuck's going on? I just want to sit here and watch some fucking TV. Fuck. So anyway, this cell, you can hear it just boom, 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 boom. You hear all this shit yelling and screaming. Boom, boom, boom. Fuck you, motherfucker. Up, motherfucking nigga, 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 fuck, fuck, nigga, nigga, fuck, fuck. All this shit. Boom, boom, boom. Dude comes running out of the cell. Screaming at the top of his lungs. He's running back and forth along this railing going, I won, with his arms up in the air and shit. And then he comes over to like where I'm sitting. There's a TV above me. He climbs over the railing and he's standing there and he's like, I won, at the top of his lungs. Now he's on fucking deuce. He's high as fucking balls right now. So he climbs back over the railing and then he starts kicking the TV. He's kicking it with his foot. Everybody's telling him, cut the fucking shit, because now you're fucking with all of us, getting rid of one of our TVs. He kicks and he kicks and he kicks this TV until the TV finally breaks off of the stand. And it's now the TV's just swinging by a couple of cords, the power cord and the fucking the cable that makes the fucking cable show up. And that's just swinging back and forth by the cables now. And there's a TV stand with no TV on it. He climbs over the railing and now he's standing on the TV stand over the entire block, like 10, 20 feet up in the air. I won! Oh! Screaming at the top of his fucking lungs. I mean, some of us are just sitting there, jump, you can do it, because fuck this guy, right? We're all fucked now anyway. The guards are going to start coming in, and so, because now this is all on camera, and this is all being watched by somebody, so they're gonna send the fucking stormtroopers in any minute now to come deal with this fucking retard. And so, yeah, so all the, like 5 or 6 teenage girls come in the fucking door. Everybody go back to your cells. Nobody's fucking listening. Nobody, because like I said, it's like a 15-year-old girl walks in and starts yelling at you and bossing you around. You're going to fucking listen? You're going to say, get the fuck out of here. So the 2 or 3 big dudes that they had, 2 or 3 big guys for a prison of 5,000 people to keep everybody in line. Well, those 3 people come in. And now everybody's kind of moseys back to their cells, kind of just, looking out the door because they hadn't shut the doors yet, just kind of seeing what's going on. So they lock everybody into the cells. They get the fucking guy off of the TV stand, strap him down to a wheeled chair with a bunch of Velcro straps to hold him in place, and they take him off to the sunset. I never saw the guy again, thank God. And they took him away. And then about, another hour or so goes by. Somebody comes in and cuts the wires to the TV. They take the broken TV away and they, patch up. They get rid of anything that's hanging there, because if there's any any pieces of metal that are left where that TV stand used to be, those are going to be gone in about 10 minutes. They're going to have there's going to be like 10 new fucking knives and shanks on the block after all that metal gets bent up and turned into knives. And so we had to wait a little while, and then they let everybody back out of the cells to watch TV, play cards, do all that kind of shit, take a shower, whatever it is that you got to do. But anyway, these teenager girls, they had no control. Of course they didn't. No 19-year-old girl's going to risk getting stabbed for the worst minimum wage job on the fucking planet. And a lot of these guards, they were literally, like, some of these teenage girls were whoring themselves out for extra cash, fucking prisoners to get paid. OnlyFans behind bars. Since there's no internet, you got to bring the fan to the cell, or you got to bring the girl to the fans. But considering that these girls could get paid $50 to $100 just for bringing in a pack of cigarettes to somebody. Smuggling in a pack of cigarettes. So think about how much they'd make for other shit like drugs and things like that. There's absolutely zero incentive for any of these people to give a fuck about keeping the place safe. And the corporation, the private company that runs this prison, wants to keep costs down as much as possible. That's why they're hiring, 18-year-old girls to be correction officers, when government-run prisons will at least hire brutes and men that can actually throw down and beat the shit out of someone who's, starting a fight. So, let's just say one of these teenage girls who's making like, $10 an hour or whatever the fuck they get paid, she comes in with a pack of cigarettes. She makes $100 for a pack of cigarettes, selling it to an inmate. Now that inmate turns around, takes a pack of cigarettes and sells each cigarette for $30 a piece to the other inmates. Remember how I told you the economy works in prison. So now that $100 pack that they paid for the cigarettes from the guard turns into $500 profit from that single pack of smokes that the inmate just made. A cell phone, remember I told you 800 to 900 phones were found in that raid. A cell phone in that prison sells for about $10,000. You want more fucking details? We can get into that. How much time do you got to sit here and listen to it is all I'm asking. Okay? So when I was at Danbury, a couple of guys from the outside of the prison, it's kind of out in the middle of nowhere. It's surrounded by woods. Some people came out of the woods and threw a package over the razor wire fence into the rec yard. But a guard saw it happen, and the package ended up being full of cell phones. So the prison was locked down for about a day or two. They were flying around the place with all these helicopters and shit. Within a few minutes, there was a full-on manhunt, and they actually found the people who threw the package over the fence. And those people, at that point, now they're facing federal charges of all kinds. So was it worth it? Was the risk worth it? Yeah, goddamn right it was. When a single cell phone sells for 10 grand behind that razor wire fence, and you just tossed a duct tape ball, padded envelope full of them over the fucking fence, or you stuffed 10 to 15 of them in a football and threw the football over the fence, or in that prison in Ohio, the crazy one I was telling you about, the packages would get dropped off by drone. Drones would fly into the yard, boop, 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 drop, just like an Amazon package, drop off a bunch of shit and whoosh, fly away. So 10 cell phones in prison is worth $100,000 for 10 fucking phones. And that's just the inmate economy right there. That's the inmate economy. The prison industry, the privately run prisons, are just part of it. The for-profit prison, the prison that operates solely to make a profit, the prison that needs to keep the beds full, therefore they bribe the judges to send people there to keep the beds full, because if the prison's empty, they're not making the money. There's a whole prison industry that covers everything from the bedding, the mattresses, the clothing, the food, the commissary. The bags of potato chips that you get are special prison brand potato chips. You can't buy this shit in the stores. The toothpaste, the ramen noodles, the toothbrushes, the fucking underwear, the socks, the piece of shit foam Crocs that fall apart within 2 days after putting them on your feet. All of these things, all the stuff that an inmate needs to, that they have to provide the inmates to take care of the prison, is a complete prison industry run by private companies. Okay? Now, inside the prison, they also have telephones that you can use to call the outside world, and they're kind of like iPads, they're tablets, but they're prison tablets. So you can get online a little bit, but they're fucking garbage, number one. They don't really work, and it's a huge scam, and it's extremely expensive, so only the rich prisoners, the ones that have $20 million, from their drug dealing socked away, that they can have people put on their books for them, they're the ones that can do this stuff. But for any prisoner, it can cost $20. It can cost $20 for an inmate to make a 15-minute phone call to their family that lives in the same town. Guess whose pocket all of that fucking money goes into? It's not the government. That money's not going to the government to help them with the cost of running the jails and the prisons. You're paying that cost. You're paying your taxes. Your taxes is paying for that shit. The $20 for the 15-minute phone call That's going into the fucking judge's pocket. That's going into George Bush's pocket and his family, who owns the stocks in all of these fucking private companies that are connected to the prisons. If you look at the ownership of these private corporations that sprung up either to outright take over and actually run the prison, or the corporations and the companies that sprung up to support the prison and the industry of keeping people in prison, the Bush family is just one of many who have gotten rich off the investments in this private prison industry, with half of the fucking scumbags in Congress. All the people who own these companies, own the stock in the companies, and control and make all the money from these companies are the same fucking scumbags who keep the beds full. Period. They're the ones, they keep the beds full and they make a profit from doing it. So, there's no conflict of interest there. Oh, no. Once in a while, like we heard, a judge goes to prison for being too lax with covering up their kickback schemes, like happened to those guys in Pittsburgh. But there's an entire prison industry, and the United States has the highest population of people in prison out of any other country on the face of the earth. The entire prison industry is run this way. The people keeping the beds full are the ones who get rich from keeping the beds full. So I got a comment in a previous video whose screen name is Roddy Dad 1, and he says, I disagree with you on the death penalty. If keeping people locked up for extended periods of time worked, we would not have the biggest prison population in the world. And I'm like, okay, did you hear any? I mean, he didn't hear anything I just said, because I just said it. But the reason why we have the biggest prison population in the world is because, one, they throw people in prison for just about anything in this fucking country, such as throwing somebody in prison over social media posts for 2 fucking years. They do that. They do that in America. If you don't believe me, be me, because I did it. I've been there. If you watched this video, you'll also realize that, if you got this far, you'll also realize, and you watched everything, you didn't skip over anything this far, you'll realize that there's big money to be made by keeping people in these prisons. Yes, some people absolutely deserve to be in prison. Some people need to be locked away and never see the outside world again. I will not argue that point. But to have the biggest prison population in the entire world when we are supposedly a free society, think about that for a minute and just let all the things I'm saying to you sink in. Just pause the video, take 30 seconds, let this all sink in, okay? This whole argument about the cost of keeping somebody in prison versus the death penalty that has been proven, it's been proven many times over that it costs more to execute a prisoner than it does to keep them locked up for life. In fact, the federal government claims that it costs about $30,000 a year to keep a prisoner locked up every year. And that will be in your sentencing document and pre-sentence investigation report you receive during the process when you're in prison or on your way to prison. That's $1.5 million to keep one prisoner locked up for 50 years. 50 years. Now I'm going to go out on a limb and believe it costs less than that. But that's what they say. That is what they put in the documents. There is a section in your pre-sentence report of how much it will cost to keep you incarcerated, and it's around about $30,000 a year, they say. Okay? But when you add in all the kickbacks that the judges get and the government officials that get bribed and, all the people that get paid to keep the beds full and the stock prices of the private companies and the profitability and all this and that, who knows? It might cost that much per prisoner. It might cost $30,000 a year. I don't know. $15,000 to keep the prisoner in prison, $15,000 for the judge's pocket. I don't fucking know. Something like that, but it's $30,000 per prisoner per year. According to artificial intelligence sources, you can go to Grok, Gemini, all these different AI tools and just type in how much does it cost to put someone to death in prison. The average cost of a Texas death penalty case is $2.3 million. So it costs more to execute a prisoner than it costs to keep them locked in prison for their entire life. So I think I've covered the first reason why people choose to work in the government. It's the power trip. There's big money to be made. There's big and powerful connections to be had. You know, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. You bribe me, I'll bribe them. And then, you know, we'll change the stock price of this company as long as you bought it first from the tip I just gave you. And we all go home winners at the end of the day. You know, look how much congressmen and women make from their job. Their job comes with $170,000 a year salary. They go into Congress making $170,000, and then magically they come out of Congress with $500 million in the bank. How the fuck did they... How long does it take to save your $170,000 a year and come out with $500 million in the fucking bank? Come on! Government jobs allow you to use your power to make ungodly amounts of money, and it gives you all the connections to do it with impunity for the most part. So I'm at an hour and a half on this video, and I haven't even started with the positivity section of today's video. I told you it was going to be a long one. I told you, you better have some attention span if you're going to get into this with me today. I told you up front, I did not beat around the bush. But we got to answer the question now. Are there any good people in the government? Now, you might look at me, the things that I say, the things that I've done, my stances throughout my life, even those who know me really well. This one's going to be a hard one for me to admit. It's hard for me to even consider this to be true based on everything I've seen and experienced. I have so many stories. So many stories. I'm never going to be at a loss. Never going to be at a loss for a new story to tell you guys. I'm 49 fucking years old. I've seen it all. I've seen it all. I'd hope I've seen enough. I've seen enough. That's the better way to put it. When I talk about things or bring back memories like the drunk judge who scammed me, or my experiences at the Texas DMV, or, you know, going to federal prison for a Twitter post, or all these other things that have happened to me in my life, being fired from a fucking job where I worked from home because I wouldn't take a fucking vaccine, you know, all these different things, they add up and make me believe that all government employees are bad people. Okay? But, see, they always say nothing counts until after the but. So, now we're at the but, and now everything after here is what counts in this video. Everything I said before that was just before the but now we're to the but and going beyond. So, when you go down this road, it also helps the road of feeling like everybody that works in the government's a complete scumbag piece of shit. You go down that road, it helps you to remember the times where somebody helped you, or at the bare minimum did their job, or were just friendly toward you. And it's very easy to forget about those people when you're focused on the bad ones. You know, it's the same concept people get into when they see a cop shoot and kill an innocent, unarmed suspect. We've all seen that happen. I mean, a lot of it's on video. And it's easy to see a cop shoot an unarmed suspect who wasn't even putting up any resistance, just pop, pop, done. And you're going to believe all cops are a bunch of crooked scumbags. You know, but when you're going through that, have you forgotten about the time that you got pulled over by a cop and he was friendly towards you? He gave you a warning instead of a ticket. He said, I just wanted to let you know your tail light's out. You want to get that fixed because someone's going to pull you over for that. I just wanted to pull you over and let you know, just in case you didn't know already. I'm not going to give you a ticket. I'm just giving you a warning. Have a nice day. That happens sometimes. And did you forget about the time that a cop helped you? Or the time maybe your house was being broken into and the police came and actually helped you? You know, if you're a woman who was beaten, Did a police officer help you get away from the person who abused you? You know, I'm not saying that all cops are bad, right? I've had plenty of experiences to justify that belief, but I got to sit down and I got to be like, okay, let's think of the times where good people came into the mix, so that you don't sit and focus on how they're all just a bunch of pieces of shit. So all of my beef from the last couple of weeks with the DMV, you know, I know, believe me, I know I make it sound in these videos like all I do all day is sit around fuming about these people. But keep in mind that I'm making content for a video and I'm putting down some thoughts. And then after I hit stop on the video recorder, I'm going on with my day and I'm not thinking about this stuff anymore. You know, I got a whole bunch of other stuff going on, and this is just another topic of discussion. It's not an all day long obsession. You know, right now I'm just making a video or a series of videos with a honed in topic, and I'm digging into that topic. So yeah, if my beef this week is with the DMV, can I sit here and think about the times where someone at the DMV was nice to me, where somebody helped me, where someone did me a solid? And if I'm honest, I could say absolutely, absolutely I can. When I went to the DMV for the first time in Jamestown, New York after prison to get my license switched from Pennsylvania to New York, I walked out 15 minutes after the guy at the window called me up for the line, holding my new temporary driver's license and getting the new one 2 weeks later in the mail. Now, I could have been put through this. Now that I've been put through this ordeal in Texas with this birth certificate situation, I know that the guy in New York could have given me a bigger hassle about this birth certificate situation. He could have made it so that I couldn't get documentation enough to get myself a job in New York or even have a driver's license. And he could have made my life a living hell over that. But he just was like, okay, good enough for me. Good, you're done. My Pennsylvania driver's license was expired. It expired while I was in prison. But you do have a certain amount of time after it expires. Usually most states give you 2 years to renew it or get a new one in a different state. So New York State's policy was, if I have an out-of-state license, as long as it has not been expired for more than 2 years, I can use that to trade in to get my New York one. At first, I thought I was going to have to go to Pennsylvania, pay the renewal fee, get my driver's license renewed in Pennsylvania, and then get it changed to New York. But that's not how it works. But anyway, the guy at the DMV, he gave me no problems. He even noticed an error that he made with my address before he even asked me to look it over for mistakes. And he corrected it on the spot. He was really friendly. The experience was pretty much the opposite of what I expected before I walked in the door. After I was homeless, I had to go back to the DMV and change my address. I waited until I had all kinds of proof of my new address because I thought I was going to need it. Same guy at the window. It was the same guy I dealt with last time. He didn't even ask me for any proof of my new address. He just had me give him the new address. Fill out a card, fill out a form. He took my payment because I needed a new ID card, and I was on my way. Fast, friendly, efficient. I shared a story in another video about a day I started a brand new job in downtown Pittsburgh. And on my first day, the director of human resources pointed out my driver's license had expired 10 days ago. And he couldn't fill out the I-9 documentation, and he couldn't give me a paycheck until that was taken care of. And I was like, get out of here. It expired 10 days ago, for crying out loud. I dreaded going to the DMV for this, because how would you not? But I decided to leave right then and there. I left the office. I walked over to the downtown Pittsburgh DMV office, and I was pretty much like, I don't think I'm going to be back today, guys. I packed everything that I needed to take home in my backpack and walked out the door. I expected I was going to be gone for the day. I walked in. I walked out with my new license and photo ID card in my hand less than 10 minutes later, and everybody was super friendly. 10 minutes is all it took. And in Pennsylvania, they print the ID card right then and there, the actual driver's license. In some states, you get like a cardboard printout, and you have to wait for the thing to show up in the mail. So, I don't know, Pennsylvania is a little bit more advanced now than some of the other states now. Another experience in Jamestown, the first day I became homeless, I had to go to the welfare office, social services, and I had to figure out my next steps, or I was going to be sleeping out in the woods in a hammock or under a tarp or maybe a little bivvy tent that I had. I was going to be living out of a fucking backpack if I didn't figure something out. During the 115 days I spent homeless, I really never ran into anybody at social services that treated me badly. I expected that, but it never happened. I never got disrespected in any way. They were always friendly. They were always helpful. In some cases, they went out of their way to be kind and helpful to me in ways that I didn't expect over and over and over again. I've talked about that in lots of videos. You can go back and watch them if you're new to the channel. Sometimes they couldn't do much to help in certain situations, but they were friendly and they did everything they could. And, you know, once in a while, there was one time I had to deal with a specific woman, and I had to deal with her more than once, and she was a little bit snotty toward me. I wouldn't call it hostile, but she had this attitude about her that she was trying to find a reason to cut your benefits. But I saw her treat everybody the same way. She had this, she was the one I had to tell that I was moving to Texas and needed to discontinue my benefits, and she was kind of rude toward me during that process. I can't go to the level of saying she was obnoxious or mean or even rude, but she had an attitude for sure. She wasn't friendly. I could tell that she had this attitude that she couldn't stand people who scam the welfare system. But she acts as if everybody she deals with is trying to game the system, and she just treats you like she feels like you're just trying to play her. And without knowing one way or another whether you are or not. So that was pretty much, I mean, that was the most negative experience I can think of in 115 days of having to deal with them nonstop. I mean, there was one nasty receptionist at one of the offices associated with social services. I talked about her in a couple videos, and she was mean and nasty to people. But she was the front desk lady. You signed a thing for your appointment. She called somebody to say you're there, tells you, go sit over there in the waiting room. And then the people that come and get you and take you to wherever you got to go, everybody after you get past the nasty bitch at the front desk was helpful, friendly, and polite, and they would always be like, they would go above and beyond what you would expect them to do for you, and treated you with respect and dignity. And I had this experience over and over again where I was expecting to be treated like garbage, and it was the opposite over and over and over again. And so another time in Jamestown, I had to go to a court-ordered mental health evaluation at some government-run mental health office, and everybody there was friendly to me. Everybody. The receptionist, she asked me for my health insurance info, and I told her I'm on welfare. I don't have a card. I don't know anything about it. She asked me, did you apply for it when you signed up for benefits? And I said, yeah, but I never heard anything back from them. She made a couple of phone calls. She got on the computer. She looked up some information for me. She hands me back a Post-it note with my health insurance information, my policy number, and all the things that she found. So I did have health insurance from the government. And then she told me, after we're done today, go back down to the social services office and talk to this specific person and that person, and they'll take care of you. And she was really friendly. And when I went down to the social services office after that appointment, I talked to the person she said to talk to, and they handed me a health insurance card with all the info on it and the policy number and stuff right then and there on the spot. Another friendly example of people who are just trying to help and do their job and treat you with respect, and, you know, apologizing. Oh, you should have got that in the mail. Sorry, that didn't happen. Here, you can take this and keep that with you, etc. And I mean, and then the mental health office, the psychiatrist that I spoke with, she was super friendly, very kind, very, she sure as hell wasn't the Dr. Mengele or Dr. Fauci nut job government psychiatrist that I was expecting. The one I thought was going to stick me with a fucking needle and I'd wake up 10 hours later in some CIA torture chamber with my eyelids pried open, watching Puff Daddy snuff films while tripping on LSD. You know, like the psychiatrist from that movie Conspiracy Theory, played by Jean-Luc Picard, or you know, whatever the fuck his name is, Patrick Stewart. But when I was done at her office, I had a clean bill of mental health, in spite of everything I just shared with you. I went back to social services and they handed me the health insurance cards, like I said, and they apologized for not having gotten them to me quicker. Going back to when I was fired from my remote job for not taking the COVID vaccine, I was in an 8-month-long battle with the state's unemployment office, who kept denying my claim for unemployment because I willfully refused an order from my company to take the vaccine. So I had a Pennsylvania state senator helping me. She talked to me. She sent a field agent to me over the phone, who I spoke with on numerous occasions. We were calling and talking to each other back and forth. She agreed with me, the state senator agreed with me, that it was not a valid reason to be fired, let alone denied unemployment. And that the state senator herself, she was pissed about it. And she had all kinds of people like me that she was fighting for who were in similar situations I was. I was far from alone. You know, there were hundreds of constituents of hers calling and going through the same thing. And she was fighting back on behalf of those people. I got arrested before that ever came to fruition, but I may have been able to win that case on appeal. I had to go through appeal process after appeal process, and there was a court date that came in the mail after I was in jail. And I missed it because obviously I was in jail. I couldn't go. But I could have received a $15,000 lump sum check for all the back payments that they owed me for unemployment after I got fired for the fucking vaccine, if I could have just showed up to that hearing. When it comes to my case and some of the things I dealt with since getting out of prison, I always felt like I had a decent lawyer who actually cared about her clients. I had a federal public defender, a private attorney for a federal case. They won't even talk to you unless you give them a check for $50,000 up front, and it's probably going to cost $100,000 to $150,000 just for them to negotiate a plea deal for you. You go to trial, who fucking knows at that point? Prosecutor for the federal government has unlimited government resources and funding to prosecute you. There's no limit to how much they can spend. They can pull all kinds of shenanigans and completely drain your resources while they prosecute you. They can file this motion, they can file that extension, one thing after the next. You got to keep paying your lawyer until you finally have no more money to pay your lawyer, and now they got you by the balls. They still have $10 trillion to fight you. You're defenseless at that point, and now you need a federal public defender to handle your case. The public defender, in turn, gets a budget of about $10,000 to fight your case and defend yourself against the tyrants that have $20 trillion to spend against you. Okay. The public defender's caseloads are so unbalanced. I had to sit in jail for 4 fucking months before I even talked to my lawyer for the first time about how she would handle my case. 4 fucking months of just waiting to have a talk with a lawyer. But let's stop there. The lawyer, her investigator, and the people in their office, you know, I feel like all of them were good people to work good people, and they all work for the government. They all seem to hate this corruption as much as I do, and I guarantee you they got more stories to tell than I do. But I know for a fact that they're all Democrats, and they all vote for Democrats. Not a single one of them was on my side of the political fence, yet they treated me with respect, dignity, and all of those things. The politics didn't get in the way of them representing me and doing the best that they can for a piddly-ass $10,000 budget against a fucking government that has $10 trillion to spend. Okay? Another example, the lawyer leading up to, I talked about this in more than one video. On the day I got released from prison, the BOP, the Bureau of Prisons, they botched my travel plans to get home. They set me up to fail right off the rip. 2 hours after I'm released from prison, I'm stranded in Bridgeport, Connecticut with nothing but a pair of shorts. A pair of shorts. In fact, fuck, I'm wearing them. I'm wearing them. Look at this. These shorts right here, because it's laundry day tomorrow, I'm just wearing my crummiest pair of shorts. These are my prison shorts. I was stranded in Bridgeport, Connecticut with literally an outfit like this. T-shirt, shorts, and I had a really crummy gray long sleeve zip up. That's it. I had $30, no ID, no cell phone. They gave me 5 minutes to transfer from a train station to a bus station down the road in Bridgeport. They gave me 5 minutes to get from the train to the bus. They're like, if you don't hurry from the train to the bus, you'll miss the bus. I'm like, what the fuck? But what am I going to do? So the train ended up being 15 minutes late. And as a result, the bus was gone. The lady at the ticket window in at the bus station was like, oh, well, tough shit, asshole. Fuck off. That's it, New York City. You're close enough to New York City. Everybody there had the New York City attitude. And so I'm stranded with no, like, what the fuck do you do? So I'm desperate. I start asking random strangers if I can borrow their cell phone to make a call, and people are just looking at me. I look like I'm a fucking homeless bum. Literally. Like, I looked like and I was, technically, kind of. This one guy, I didn't get into the details of my situation. I just told him I'm stranded. I don't have a phone. I need to call somebody and let them know what's going on. I need to get some help. Can I use your phone for a minute? That minute turned into almost an hour. And I ended up calling my lawyer, the public defender's office, and her boss was there. And her boss was someone I had talked to before. But anyway, she kept me on the phone for about an hour, and she made a whole bunch of phone calls and got me in touch with the U.S. probation office in Bridgeport, Connecticut, which was about a 10-15 minute walk from where I was stranded. And there was enough time for me to get there before their offices closed at the end of the day. And so I walked over to the probation office. I went up, I met with one of the probation officers, and this guy in the probation office, he rebooked all of my transportation to get home. He printed out new bus and train tickets and everything. And he set it up so that I had 2 hours to get from a train to a bus stop. So I'd take a train to a train station in somewhere down the road, Yale, wherever Yale is. I can't remember New Haven, Connecticut, where Yale is. I had to get off. I had to take a train to the New Haven train station. Then I had 2 hours to figure out where to get on the bus. And that was fucking confusing because the bus stop was not readily available. It was a homeless guy. A homeless guy told me he saw me out looking for a bus stop. He knew I was looking for a bus. Yeah, like I looked like I was fucking homeless. So this homeless guy comes up. He's like, you're waiting for a bus, huh? He's like, you ain't gonna find that bus here. You got to go over here. And he's explaining the whole fucking thing to me. And he's like, can you hook a nigga up with some square? And I'm like, dude, I just got out of prison. He's like, oh, never mind, man. We good. We did the fist bump, the whole nine. I was on my way. He told me where to go get the bus, but I had 2 hours to figure out where to get this bus, and I was fine. I got the bus on time. Then I had to take that bus to downtown Manhattan, across the street from Madison Square Garden. And I had 5 hours to figure out where to get on the next bus and just go find stuff to do. And I've kind of talked about that in a couple other videos, but I had 5 hours to wait at Madison Square Garden at the Amtrak station across the street, or the train station below the arena. And I was able to kill 5 hours there while I was waiting for a bus that would eventually take me to Buffalo, New York. And the probation officer who set all this up for me and made it so that I would have plenty of time to figure out each step of the way as I got to each step. He did all that on purpose. He got me home 8 hours earlier. Somehow he worked it out so I got home to Buffalo, New York 8 hours earlier than I would have gotten home had the original transportation plan fallen into place. If I had made the bus on time from Bridgeport, Connecticut, I would have gotten to Buffalo, New York about 3 in the afternoon. Instead, I was there at about 7 in the morning. My mind is blown. I don't even know how that all worked out. So I have all this gratitude for the people who could fix that for me. I was in a state of absolute panic. If that's your first experience after being released from federal prison, just thrown out into the fucking wild in sleet and rain at the end of March, 1st of April, it's fucking pretty much snowing out. You're in a pair of shorts and a fucking t-shirt. You got $30, no cell phone, no wallet, no ID, and you're stranded outside of New York City. Would anybody feel any different in that situation other than fear and panic? And it was a mix of fear and anger and all kinds of shit going in my head. You know, when that happened. I wish I knew who the guy was in Bridgeport who let me use his phone for an hour, because I'm so grateful for that dude and his kindness that day. I couldn't even do something nice enough for him to express my gratitude for him. I mean, I don't know if you know if somehow you're watching this video and you're like, hey, that sounds just like that guy I know who let some homeless guy in Bridgeport use his phone and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, somehow the universe connects me back to that guy. I would just want to say thank you. Fuck, thank you. But, you know, most of these people who helped me get home were all government employees. And after I've been home, everybody I've dealt with at the probation office, the United States probation offices in Buffalo, Pittsburgh, and Houston, Texas, they've all been kind to me. Some of them have been a little more stern than others. You know, these are cops, basically, and you're just getting out of prison. You're a fucking criminal. But they've all been friendly toward me, respectful. They treat me with dignity and respect. They all seem like they want you to succeed and not get in trouble again, and they're there. They do have some ability and some resources to help get you on your feet. And it's kind of the opposite of what I hear from some people who I know who've dealt with like county level probation officers in their various fiefdoms and counties. You know, you hear a lot of stories when you're going through this shit. At the county level, a lot of these probation officers seem to exist solely to get people put back in the clink. Kickbacks. How much are these probation officers getting paid by the private jails and the private prisons for getting these people thrown back in, keeping them beds full? Just saying, we got 2 judges that went to prison for it. Would not surprise me in the least if probation officers are on the take. It was a federal probation officer in Pittsburgh who pushed through my request to move down to Texas when originally my request to move to Texas had been denied. And that was a major factor that resulted in me becoming homeless. My ex found out a few days after my request was denied, and she threw me out into the fucking street to be homeless. This probation officer in Pittsburgh, she gave me 3 different options. They all kind of sucked, including Texas. I mean, no offense to my friends, but none of these options, they're all pros and cons, but none of them are great. But this officer in Pittsburgh said that whichever one I choose to do, stay in Jamestown, move to Pittsburgh, or go to Houston and start over there, she would do whatever was in her power to support me, help me, push things through, and get things done. And she did that. She made all the phone calls, filled out all the forms, and pushed and got me down here. So all I'm saying is all of these people could be making my life a bitter hell right now. And that was pretty much what I expected when I was in prison before I got home. But the experiences that I've actually had has been the opposite of that. They don't seem to be making my life miserable. They're doing their job. They haven't been threatening me. They haven't been aggressive toward me. They haven't been snotty with me. They haven't copped me an attitude. I haven't experienced any of that from these people. And some of them have been actually very helpful. You know, I told you about 2 that went above and beyond the call of duty to help me out. You know, I've heard from people that I did time with who were back in prison for probation violations. They got a lot of chances to fuck shit up before they got put back into prison while they were on probation. One of these guys, he failed a drug test for weed 9 times before the probation officer finally decided to take him to court and put him back in prison. He let the guy fail 8 times. Now, if you failed a weed test 5 times with your probation officer, and your probation officer is like, if you don't piss clean for me, I'm going to have to put you back in prison. After 5 fucking times, you think you might be able to stop smoking pot for a month or 2 so that you don't dirty the fucking cup. 9 fucking times this guy pissed dirty for weed, and then they finally put him back in prison. He's doing another fucking year in prison because he wanted to smoke weed. I like to smoke weed. I don't like prison all that fucking much, so I'm gonna not, I'll wait. Someday I'll smoke, someday I'll be hanging out with Willie Nelson down the road, and we'll do a big fucking bong hit together, and, we'll talk about all our problems that we've had with the government. We all know Willie Nelson had his share. But until that day, I'm not going back to fucking prison over smoking a fucking joint. It's not that important to me. I've barely had more than a beer or 2 since I got out of prison. I'm not a big drinker. I never really have been. I haven't been drunk since 2015. And I never will again. I'll never be drunk again, ever. But I have my party days just like anybody else, right? All I'm saying is I'm 49 years old. Hangovers, they get worse and worse and much, much worse as you age. And in 2015, I had the hangover of all hangovers and some other negative experiences from a beer festival. And I chose that I'll never feel like that again, and I haven't done it since. No more beer festivals, no more wine festivals, never, ever again. So can I sit here and come up with more examples of government officials who did me a solid? Yeah, I can keep doing it. There was a time in Pittsburgh when a piece of shit cop in Pittsburgh pulled me over the day I started a new job, and I had my Jeep towed because the inspection sticker was past due by a few months. I was broke. I was unemployed. I tried telling him that I had an appointment to get my Jeep inspected on payday. He yelled at me to get out of the fucking vehicle. He left me and my 12-year-old daughter stranded on the side of the road and had my vehicle towed. He wrote me a $150 ticket. I had to get a hold of my friend to come and get us. My friend had to lend me $150 to get my Jeep out of the impound. It was all over pretty quickly. I got my Jeep back within an hour or 2 because the impound was right down the road. But anyway, I got my vehicle inspected on payday. I went to court for the ticket and fought it. Well, I went to court to talk to the judge. The judge threw out the charge. He didn't make me pay the fine. He dismissed the ticket. The only thing he could have done that he didn't refund my fee for the towing. I saw him do that with some other people earlier before I went up to talk to the judge. He said he could understand the situation I was in and he would dismiss the charge and I wouldn't owe any more money. He was like, you know, you've paid enough in the towing fee. I'm going to let that be. I'm like, okay, that was okay. Not too bad. It could have been worse. He could have made me pay the fine and the towing fee. But, you know, remember when I said just now, I said I would never get drunk again. Well, like I said, I have my party days back in my 20s. We started drinking at happy hour right across the street from work in downtown Pittsburgh. 5:30 in the evening, 5:30 in the afternoon, whatever it is to you. It was probably past midnight when I finally decided to leave the bar. I don't fucking... my memory is so blurry from this night. I walked outside. We all walked outside to go catch buses to get home. I hopped on the first bus that drove by without having any idea where this bus goes. I just said, oh, there's a bus. Bye. Got on the fucking bus. But then at some point, I'm riding this bus and I'm like starting to realize this is not taking me home. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm drunk. Holy shit. So I just get off this bus and off in the distance I could see in the first place of this story, I'm very good at navigating around the city of Pittsburgh. I know pretty much every inch of this city. I know all the nooks and crannies. I knew where I was, generally speaking. I could see this clock tower that signifies over there, that clock tower is the south side of Pittsburgh. And my best friend, the person I'm living with right now, his apartment is 2 blocks away from that fucking clock. You can look out the back window of his apartment and see the big giant clock. It's right fucking there. All I got to do is get from here to the big clock and I'm set. I got a place to crash. Straight line, but Pittsburgh doesn't really work in a straight line. If you've ever lived there, you'd know what I'm talking about. So I start walking in a straight line toward the big giant clock and I'm walking across this big empty field. There's a building. And then I get to a chain link fence and I'm like, what the fuck is this? And I'm like, I don't want to walk. I don't want to go. I don't want to try and figure out how to get. I got to go in a straight line. The clock's there. I'm in dress shoes, dress pants, carrying a laptop bag over my shoulders. And to this day, to this very day, I spent years after this night. I spent years trying to find this chain link fence and this building and this spot where all of this happened. I have no fucking idea to this day where I was. I don't know how I actually got back to the south side. But I climbed the chain link fence and when I went down the other side, I fell down a ravine. Just slid all the way down to the bottom of a ravine in dress clothes, a suit, dress shoes. I smacked my toe so hard on a rock or something that I literally lost my toenail from it. Like a week later, my toenail fell off. Completely fell off my toe. I'm in a fucking ravine. I'm in a creek. Waist deep. My laptop's fucking hosed. All kinds of bad shit. Okay, this is a bad night that's just getting worse, and the night hasn't really even started yet, my friends. So now, somehow, I don't know how, I found I climbed up the other side of the ravine, and now I'm on a road that I generally know where it goes, and there's a bus stop, a covered bus stop, and I sit there, and a bus comes through, and I know I'm a little bit more sober, and I know this bus is. I actually probably asked the bus driver, "Hey, are you going down to the south side?" "Yeah, come on." "Okay, we're good." Boom. I get off the bus somewhere in the south side. Now I know where I am. Now I know my way around. I mean, I've been down in the south side, drunk off my ass a number of times. I mean, I was in my 20s, and that's where all the bars are. So and my friend lives in the south. I know my way around now. Definitely. We're like blocks. We're like 5, 6, 10 blocks at the most from my friend's house. I'm in the home stretch. I'm like almost there. But I was wrecked that night. I walked across a parking lot, and it's got one of those gates that come down, you know, like where you put in your ticket after you paid, and the gate goes up and you drive through and the gate little bar comes back down. Well, I walked right through the freaking gate and I just pushed the bar and the thing broke. The thing just snapped off and it goes bing, 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 and it's laying on the ground. And I'm like, oh, whatever, what the fuck, I'm drunk. I just broke this parking lot gate and I just keep on walking like I don't give a fuck. But I was drunk. Keep that in mind. I didn't notice there were 10 to 15 cops standing across the street, right across the fucking street. They came over and grabbed me and like, they didn't throw me down on the ground, but they're like, sit the fuck down. So they're in this big powwow, 10, 15 cops. I'm directly across the street from my friend's house, from his apartment. I'm looking up at his window. Him and the other people that live there are looking down at me. They don't know it's me yet. But there's flashing lights and all kinds of shit going on the corner right in front of their apartment, right across the street. So of everybody in the neighborhood's looking out the window, what's going on? What's going on? So the cops, they wrote me a ticket for criminal mischief and for being drunk in a public place and for destroying public property or some shit. And then they left me holding a ticket in my hand. I walked across the street, knocked on the door. My friend comes down, he opens the door, he's like, oh my God, that was you! Boom, but anyway, I'm safe. I'm safe for the night. I can crash on the floor, on the couch, whatever. I'll wake up tomorrow when I'm sober, take a cab home, take the bus home, whatever, and pick up the pieces from there. So, to make things worse, I get a court date. But when the court date showed up in the mail, I already had a vacation planned, taking my little daughter, who is in the first grade now, down to Florida to go to Disney World for 10 days. And one of my best friends lived in Orlando, and he worked for Disney World. So we were paying for the cost of an airline ticket and food, and we were going to get to go spend 10 days at fucking Disney World for the cost of nothing but an airline ticket and some food. And so I was like, fuck it. I didn't go to court. I took my daughter to Florida. We went and hung out with fucking Mickey Mouse for 10 days. Whatever at this point. I was in my 20s. I didn't give a shit. I came back to a nasty letter in the mail saying that since you decided not to show up in court today, we found you guilty. You have been fined $450 and you have 10 days to pay, or a warrant for your arrest will be issued. So I'm like, all right, you got me. I took $450 cash, and during my lunch break the next day at work, I walked over to the courthouse to pay the fine and to be done with it. I go up to the clerk, to the window. I hand him the letter. I have the cash in my hand. The clerk behind the window, he looks at me and goes, holy shit, dude. He's like, you don't want to pay that. He's like, that's way too much money for that charge. So, talking about a government official doing you a solid, doing you a favor. Okay? This clerk tells me, no, you're not paying that. That's way too much money for that. That's bullshit. You need to file an appeal. He's like, here, tell you what, dude. He's like, give me $50. We're going to file an appeal. You're going to get another day to come back, and you're going to see a different judge. And he's like, I guarantee you're going to have a better outcome than this. I can guarantee you that. Just do what I tell you and keep your mouth shut. Okay, guy. Thank you. Sounds good to me. So I pay my $50. Now I got $400 left. I can go grocery shopping, whatever the hell I need to do, whatever. So I go to my court date, and I couldn't get anybody to babysit my daughter, who's like 8. She's like 8 years old now, 7 years old, something. She's in like the first grade. And so I had to bring my daughter to court and try to explain to a little 8-year-old why we're going to court and why, you know, why, and like, just sit here. Daddy's got to go take care of some stuff. You know, I don't know if Daddy's going to fucking jail. Daddy might be going to jail right now, but you just sit here and, you know, Daddy's going to be done in a few minutes, okay? And so we go to court. And, you know, she's 6, like I said, she's 7 years old. She has no idea that her dad's a drunk idiot going to court for some dumbass shit. And so I'm sitting there waiting for my case to get called. And in walks this guy who literally looks just like John Lovitz from Saturday Night Live. I mean, a dead ringer, twin brother, doppelganger. It was John Lovitz from Saturday Night Live. He walks in, or it may as well have been him. He walks in with a black button-up dress shirt with a collar, short sleeves. But he was wearing this really obnoxious, really wide Hawaiian tie. And I swear this fucking tie looked like there was a switch somewhere on the back that would activate some blinking lights on the front when you turn it on. I swear to God, this thing was fucking ridiculous. And the dude's carrying a fucking easel. An easel, like he's an artist or something, okay? He goes up to the front of the courtroom and he puts the easel up. And he puts these big foam board printouts on it, right? And he starts talking to the judge. Your Honor, I would like to present to the court Exhibit A, a photo of the street where I received my ticket and blah, blah, blah. And he's going on and on and on. Then the judge cuts him off saying, sir, you received a citation for going 5 miles per hour over the speed limit. And then John Lovitz, this guy, he starts arguing with the judge. He's like, I want to cross-examine the officer, Your Honor, and obtain a record of the last time his speed timing device was calibrated, and I wish to present People's Exhibit C, and he starts flipping panels on his fucking easel and shit. Everybody in the courtroom, from the bailiff, the fucking stenographer with the thing, the goofy typewriter, all of them, like, she can't even type on the thing anymore. Everybody's just laughing their ass off. Everybody's sitting out in the courtroom in the public seats. I'm laughing my ass off. I'm like, what in the fuck is going on here? This guy's going on and on and on. I object. And eventually the judge, he gets mad at the guy and he's like, shut up, just shut up. And he's like, you're in here for a basic traffic citation and you're trying to Perry Mason your way out of this and being combative with me and disrespecting this court and all of our time. And the guy was like, I object. And the judge was like, bang, with the gavel. He's like, I said, shut up. One more outburst from you and you aren't going to like what happens. And as for your ticket, it was 5 miles per hour over the speed limit. Had you come in here with a reasonable explanation, maybe a little bit of humility, and maybe if you acted like a normal human being and carried on with respecting the court, I probably would have dismissed your ticket for you, but not anymore. I find you guilty, and you can pay your fine and go make arrangements to do so at the clerk's office on your way out. Bang, with the gavel. And now this fucking guy, John Lovitz, looked like he was going to stand up. He's like, He looked like he had People's Exhibit D ready on the fucking easel. He was gonna, but then he just shook his head. He gathered his stuff and he just like sombered out of the courtroom while everybody's laughing their ass off at this guy. Laughing their ass off. It was so freaking crazy watching this. And then I hear, Adam B's. And I'm like, motherfuck, man. I just got, he was the fucking opener for my case. So now I'm on front. Now I'm on stage. Now I'm taking the stage for this show. I'm the very next person to go in front of this angry judge. And I'm actually kind of worried about it now because this guy's pissed. He's pissed. I'm walking up to the podium, you know, where you stand and you apologize for your stupidity and all that kind of stuff. And I was ready to explain, you know, how stupid I was. It'll never happen again. And I don't know, you know, I was just so stupid that night and just so obnoxious. I'm so sorry. I'll do whatever it takes to reform and, you know, all this, whatever. I had this whole thing worked out. I was just going to give it a whole speech and just go all in. And a few of the police officers are there, and they're talking to the judge before I can, I kind of hear what's going on. And one of the cops was like, well, he only caused about 50 cents in damage, and he was really cooperative with us, and he doesn't have a record, and blah, blah, blah. And I could hear some more mumbling. And the judge looks up from them, and then he looks me in the eye, and he says, okay, sir, I'm dismissing this charge. You're free to go. Bang. Bangs his gavel on the desk and calls the next case. I did not have to speak a single word. Not one word. The case was dropped without me saying anything. I didn't get asked any questions. I walked up to the podium. I stood there. The judge looked at me, said, okay, you're dismissed. You're free to go. Boom, done. Turns out that the only damage that was done to the parking lot gate were these two little plastic bolts that are breakaway bolts. They're designed to break. So if you're in a car and you drive through the gate without paying or sticking in your ticket, it's designed to break off and fall to the ground so that it doesn't damage the machine that lifts it up and down. So they're these two plastic bolts. Basically, it was like 50 cents worth of damage and 5 minutes of someone's time the next morning to put new bolts on and put it back together, and they had the thing back up and running the next day, and they didn't give a shit about it. Whatever, some dumbass drunk. My stupidity cost them 50 cents and 10 minutes of time. I got to go home. So basically, I had to pay for the appeal because I didn't go to my original court date. But it worked out nice because I paid $50 for seats to a live Saturday night live skit at the Allegheny County Courthouse in Pittsburgh. And I got to be there in person for John Lovitz to do a skit right in front of me. It was fucking brilliant. And I mean, honestly, that was worth $50 because it was so insanely funny to watch. My God, it's been like 25 years since that happened, probably. And I still think it's one of the funniest things I ever saw. And so, there's another example of two government employees and a few cops at the same time who all did me a favor when they had every reason imaginable to sock it to me pretty hard. They let me walk away from a bad situation, and I didn't even have to apologize for it. We have the clerk who told me, you don't want to pay that fine. Give me $50 and come back. He's like, don't you go and pay that $450. That's bullshit. That was from the clerk at the courthouse. The judge, I didn't have to say a word. He was just like, oh, I'm dismissing this. You can go home. Done. The cops were like, oh, he didn't do that much damage. He was cooperative. He was just, he probably just had a little bit too much to, let's just go easy on him. Okay, good. So, there you have it. I could spend, it's already 2.5 hours into this video, and I could go on and on about the good things that decent or even good people in the government have done throughout my life and times that they have helped me rather than ruin me. And I bet if most of you dig deep, you can also think of examples of your own. And so while there are many, many, many corrupt, lazy, incompetent, rude, obnoxious government officials who take pleasure in treating you like garbage or using their position of power for personal gain and enrichment, when you are going down the path of being angry with them, just sit back and try to think of any times at all, that someone in those same positions came to your aid and was friendly to you, helped you out of a jam. Come up with examples of times that they helped your friends or your family or people that you know. Because if you do that, it'll help clear your head and help you calm the fuck down and get rid of that anger and that hostility and that unforgiveness of the times when those bad things did happen to you. When I go through this list of the people who did good things for me, it takes away a lot of that negativity that I was feeling when I had a bad day at the DMV. you know? And that bad day at the DMV was like a downward spiral of all these things bubbling up to the surface, and remembering, oh, if this and that, or remember that corrupt, oh, remember that scumbag judge that blah, 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 all that stuff. And so you kind of have to you got to sit back and say, you know, come up with examples of the good things. You know, remember that cop that got me speeding and he let me walk away without a ticket. He just told me to slow down. You know, those kinds of things have happened. And so with that, I've dropped another, it's probably my longest video yet, 2.5 hours. But sometimes it just takes time to go through all the stories and to put it all together and to tell you everything that I wanted to talk about. And so I just don't feel like breaking this video up into 6 different videos and spreading it out over a week. And, you know, no, I'm not doing that. I'm just going to put it all in one video. You got to watch one ad at the beginning. I make like a penny and you get to watch 2.5 hours of me running my mouth. So if you made it this far, thank you. You're a definite fan. And, you know, the best things that you can do to help me out and to help this channel out is to just spread the word. Share the videos, talk about it, share it with your friends. Say, hey, check this out, check this guy out. He's got some funny stories, whatever the case may be. If each and every one of the 150 of you that watch this video today would share it with 2 people, that's like 300 more people than originally watched it. And then if those 300 people can share it with 2 more people, that's like 600 more. And then from there, it's like a lot. So, you know, I got to get help because the YouTube algorithm sure doesn't like what I'm talking about. But anyway, we're 2.5 hours in and then some. I hope you're all having a good time. I hope you're getting things done in your lives that you're trying to accomplish. And like I said, if you're angry with the government and you swallowed a bitter pill because of something they've done to you, just take a chill pill for a minute, step back, and remember what can happen to you if you lose your cool and you go off the fucking ledge and you do something stupid that you're going to regret when you're sitting in a prison cell in Danbury, Connecticut. Anyway, peace out, and we'll talk again.